Hello, welcome to another Martin Roberts property titbit, and this particular video is all about you if you're a first time buyer. A lot of people say to me, it's all well and good, but I haven't bought a house before. I haven't necessarily got much money behind me. I need to get on the property ladder, but how do I do it? Well, in the course of the next 10 or 15 minutes or so, I'm going to try and give you some inspiration as to how, if you're a first-time buyer, you can still get involved in the world of property. And one of the things I'm very focused on when I'm running my property training courses, which I run in conjunction with Asset Academy, and we run courses throughout the UK throughout the year, both online and physically live in seminars and whatever. One of the things that we really enjoy focusing on is teaching first-time buyers how they can get engaged in the world of property without necessarily having to come up with too much money. Because obviously when you're starting out, raising that first deposit, as I had to do when I started out, I think my first house was 23,000 quid. I think I had to find about 6,000 quid as a deposit. It was tough. I was working in the media. I wasn't earning very much. I mean, sadly, my granny died, but one of the only positives of that were that I inherited some money, which she kindly left me, and that gave me a little bit of a start in the world of property. But there are definitely ways that you can use the limited funds that you have to the best effect. One of the key things that I think you've got when you're a first-time buyer is time, often enthusiasm and energy. And I suppose it's about setting your expectations of the property that you're going to buy at the right kind of level. And you may have aspirations for, the huge house with a huge garden with a stream at the bottom of it, in the ideal location, close to where you work, close to nice schools or whatever. And that is definitely something to keep in mind. Have it there as a goal. You're going to get that. You will get that. But you might have to take a few steps to get to that point. So this is where you have to start thinking outside the box and starting a little bit further down the ladder, and maybe starting with something that isn't ideal, okay? Something, though, which you can add value to. This doesn't have to be your forever home. This is just somewhere where you're going to live temporarily, have it as your principal place of residence, which has significant tax implications when it comes to selling. Because if you are living in a house and you do it up while you're living there, and then you subsequently, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years later, sell that house, whatever profit you've made in between what you bought it for and what you sell it for is tax-free. Okay, it's your home and you've done good things to it. You bought it at you bought it at £100,000. You sell it for £150,000. That £50,000 profit is tax-free, right? It's not an income. It's profit from your own home. And that's an amazing tax break, if you think about it, isn't it? I mean, what other things can you do where you add value to something and then you sell it at a profit, but you don't have to pay any tax on the profit? Don't know. You don't even have to take off. Let's say I was buying this widget and I'm doing stuff to it and I'm selling it for this price as a business. Let's say this is £10 for the cost of the widget to buy it, and let's say I spend £5 doing up the widget or adding to the widget, and I sell the widget for 20 quid. then my profit is £10 plus £5, which is £15. That's what it cost me. Sold it for 20, so my profit is 20 minus 15, £5. Well, if I'm a business, I'm going to have to pay tax on that difference, that £5. With a house, I could buy it at 100 grand. I could spend no money on it whatsoever. I could sell it for 150 grand a few years later, and that 50 grand is completely tax-free. So actually working on and living in your own home, your principal place of residence, is a really tax efficient thing to do. So if you can put up with the mess, if you can put up with living in a place that you're doing up at the same time, then do it. You know, it's a great way to get that profit and being able to move that profit then into your next venture. So that first house you buy, it has to be something which you can afford. So you need to start looking at places where properties are affordable. And, you know, one of the great things about this day and age is that more and more people are working from home. So it could be that, you know, you would be able to relocate to other parts of the country, say, I don't know, Derby or Manchester or Stoke or South Wales or other parts of the country where you can get quite good value properties for less money. So, for instance, you know, if you were to look in central London, that's where you want to live. You know, what's your starting price for a house in central London? Oh my gosh, I just shudder to think. 250, 300,000 quid. So if you're raising the deposit on that, say you get a 10% deposit on that, that's 25 grand, 30 grand, it's a lot of money. If you look at the same kind of house in Derby, that's going to be maybe 80, 90,000 quid. So to find your 10% deposit, you're going to have to find 8,000 quid. It's a big difference, right? It's a lot of money, but it's a big difference. So think about buying outside the area where you really want to be, if the area where you really want to be is super expensive. That's a really good starting point. Buy outside the area. And look for property that you can add value to. So your experience might be limited to doing a bit of painting or a bit of tiling or whatever. But even that can make a huge difference to a property. And it's so easy these days to learn and enhance your skills. You could go on night school classes to learn about, well, everything from plastering to doing electrics, which obviously you can't do electrics unless you're qualified. But if you get a qualification at night school, you can. You can learn about bricklaying. You can learn more generically about property renovation. So why not? Why not invest in that so that when you do have the opportunity to do up a house, you don't need to get the tradesman in. You can do it yourself. You save yourself 250 quid a day by doing the plastering yourself. You can save yourself 250 quid a day by doing some brick building yourself. You know, I mean, this is all stuff which as a first-time buyer you need to do. And as I said at the start, one thing you've got is time. Time on your hands to do work which you otherwise have to pay for, which adds value to the property that you're in. So set your expectations slightly lower, buy outside the area, perhaps in an area where it's cheaper. Look for properties that you can add value to. If all that still means you can't afford to get into a property, then you might want to consider buying your first property with somebody else, even a group of people. So 4 or 5 of you club together and get the money together to buy a house, which you then do up and sell on as a profit. Now, that's a really interesting opportunity. You could even buy a house to live in for a while, shared ownership. Or you can invest together in a project and then sell it on at a profit. Now, it's really important, if you are going to do that though, that you get the agreement between all of you sorted out legally. And it's no good just agreeing it down the pub and saying, yeah, it'll be fine, because something will come out of the woodwork that nobody would have been expecting. Somebody wants to sell before somebody else. Somebody needs to move out. Somebody falls out with somebody else gets divorced. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons. So if you've got it written down what the process is, if that happens, then it's all fine and dandy. But you need to get that sorted out at the start. So you could look at other people to invest alongside you. You could think about looking at somebody you know, maybe a friend or a relative, who perhaps has got some cash which they are currently not getting any money on. It's in the bank, it's in the building society, it's getting them 0.5% interest or whatever it is. Perhaps they would consider entering into an arrangement with you where you take that money from them and you invest it in a property. They would have security over that property, and then you have again a written agreement which says that when the property is sold, any profit is shared between you if you've done the work. So you might have, as I said, a friend or a relative who could do the financing for you and you put in all the effort. That is certainly an option. And what we're talking about here really is getting you that pot of money, building up that pot of money so that you are then able to do your own thing in the future and then start to gradually build that pot. It's called a property ladder for a reason. That is, it's not just straight in at the top, but you have to take the steps bit by bit to get to where you want to get to. So that's another thing you might want to consider, looking at people who could potentially help you. And then do think about the auctions. A lot of people say, are the auctions suitable for first-time buyers? And I say, well, any place where you can get hold of property at a discount, and not all auction properties are a bargain, but there definitely are bargains at auction. So if you could get hold of a doer-upper, something you can add value to, in an area perhaps where it's not so expensive, then go along to the auctions. The most important thing about the auctions is you do have to have your ducks in a row. You do need to have your finances sorted out before you get there. You will be required to pay 10% deposit on the day and find the rest of the 90% within 28 days. So it's no good going to the auctions not knowing that you can afford to buy the property you're going after. But you can get mortgages on auction properties. I'm going to do a whole video all about auction properties. And in fact, I do my property training courses through Asset Academy, and one of the weekend courses we do is all about property auctions. I've also got my property auction masterclass, which is a 12-part program you could do at home, which will teach you all about the whys and wherefores of buying property at auction. You can find out all about those at martinrobertspropertyeducation.com or through my own website, martinroberts.co.uk. So auctions are definitely something you might want to consider if you are looking at buying first time. Again, getting hold of those properties that could potentially generate you an opportunity or give you an opportunity to add value, and that's what we're looking at. I guess the first step before all of that is making sure that you're as attractive a person from a financial point of view for a lender. So I'm going to do a whole video in the future all about credit ratings and what you could do to make your credit rating as high as possible, because you might be aware that unfortunately we are in a world where it is computer say yes, computer say no. That computer is often linked into one of the big credit search agencies, Equifax, Experian, and if you've got, for whatever reason, a bad credit rating, then it is going to make your life slightly harder when it comes to raising finance. There are so many simple ways that you can improve your credit rating. And I'll talk you through those in a future video. But just knowing what your credit rating is a really important start, because if you don't know what they know about you, you can't check that it's right and do what you can to improve it. So one little tip from this to take home is just check your credit score right now and see what's on there, because we want to get you in a situation where you are most likely to be able to borrow money. And the sooner you start sorting out your credit rating, the better. So go to the auction, make sure you can get finance, get the properties. It's another way of making sure that you get hold of those properties that are as attractively priced as possible. First-time buyers don't necessarily need to be first-time buyers of their home. A first-time buyer can be the first time you bought a house. And it is worth saying at this point that, with the view to doing it up, there are schemes out there which certainly help first-time buyers. Help to Buy is obviously one of them, and that's where the government, what's the word, secures, backs up part of a loan you might take out. Unfortunately, at the moment, they are only available, and the what's it called? Help to Buy. The Help to Buy scheme is only currently available to people who are buying new build properties. And the new build properties have lots of great things about them. They also have perhaps some negatives when it comes to being a property investor, or perhaps a first-time buyer. They are often a little bit more expensive, and from my point of view, they don't give you the opportunity to add value. You can still buy great houses, and you might be able to sell them at a profit in the future, but more often than not, everything in them has been sorted out, obviously, because they're new. So you've got a new kitchen, you've got a new bathroom, so you can't sort of add value. So I would suggest that perhaps it's a shame that Help to Buy doesn't exist for second-hand properties for first-time buyers. But I would suggest perhaps that you can get some of the benefits, the financial benefits, by thinking about buying second-hand properties, adding value, buying in areas where you can get slightly cheaper and potentially do up with a financial involvement which isn't as great as in other parts of the country. And looking at those ways that I've talked about there, remind you, looking at perhaps doing a joint venture with friends or family, looking at perhaps going as a shared opportunity, a shared house with somebody who's in the same situation as you. Looking at properties in parts of the country where it's not so expensive to buy, and using that as your starting point. Have your end in mind, but maybe recognise that your steps to get to that end might be, a few, but you will get there in the end. In lots of ways, first-time buyers, are in a good situation. You do have availabilities of specialist finance at times. So do check out through an independent financial advisor and an independent mortgage broker that there are options there, or ask them about options that might be suitable for you. So just on the mortgage broker front, do always approach what's called an all-of-market independent mortgage broker. That isn't somebody who's tied to any specific lender, like a building society or a bank or whatever, but somebody who can work with you to find the mortgage that's going to be most suitable to you. Tell them that you're a first-time buyer. Tell them your circumstances. And before that, do what I said, of course, which is to make sure that your credit rating is as good as it can be, and work on improving that credit rating. And it works in a strange kind of way, doesn't it? You're much better off having credit cards, using them and then paying them all off, and it's really important you don't get into credit card debt. But if you have a credit card and you use it and then you pay it off completely at the end of each month, that starts generating you a profile with the credit rating agencies, that somebody who can borrow money but pay it back, borrow money, pay it back, borrow money, pay it back. They like to see that. They like to see that you can manage your finances. So start building your credit rating by, strangely enough, being active a little bit more. Build that credit rating, but the first step is to check your credit rating. So as I said, take home from this, go and check your credit rating right now and see what's on there. And you might be surprised, there might be some things on there which are just completely spurious. You might have stuff that's bringing down your credit rating that's nothing to do with you, and you can make a notice of correction. As I said, I'll do a whole video about credit rating at another time. But for now, I hope I've shown you that if you're a first-time buyer, there are steps you can take to get on the property ladder. And I believe that investing in property is one of the best routes to financial freedom. So the quicker you can get on that ladder, the better. So please like this video, subscribe, tell your friends, check out my various other social media, my Twitter account, TV Martin Roberts, my Instagram, Martin Roberts TV, or is it the way around? I can't remember. Twitter is Martin Roberts TV, Instagram's TV Martin Roberts. I've got YouTube, which is Martin Roberts TV. And I've got podcasts. That's actually Martin Roberts and DIY Dave. That's a podcast. You might want to check that out, which has got lots of fun stuff on there. And obviously check out the other videos on this YouTube channel, and keep an eye out for other stuff that might be interesting to you. I've got my property training seminars, which you can find out through martinrobertspropertyeducation.com. But if you are a first time buyer, the final thoughts I want to leave you with are, don't give up hope. There are ways that you can get on the property ladder, and it's worth the effort. All the best.